Hi, welcome to another tip for a penetration tester or a security analyst career. This time I want to talk about the importance of keeping up to date with the latest exploits and vulnerabilities that are divulged and released. You might notice that I'm here on a Friday night after I allegedly have finished working playing with the latest exploit released for the BlueKeep vulnerability on RDP that was recently added to the Metasploit repository and that you can add manually by grabbing the file on GitHub. It's a very early release of this exploit, which is extremely unstable. In fact, I don't recommend running it in a production environment because it can easily cause a blue screen of death. Now I'm showing you the final result, which is I gained a interpreter shell on the system, which is a Windows Server 2008 release 2. But in the process I got at least 5 or 6 blue screens of death. So it's extremely unstable, and actually there's one thing you need to change in the Windows Server 2008 for this exploit to be successful, which I'm going to show you right now. There's a registry setting that you need to change. I followed this guide here, and actually I'm already in the registry key I needed to change, which is this one. The default value for this is 1. You need to change it to 0. So why is it important for you as a security professional to be on top of the latest exploits and vulnerabilities? First of all, it's fundamental if you're a blue teamer because you can defend against something you don't know. And new vulnerabilities are constantly introduced every day, or I should say maybe every second, because new bugs are discovered, new technologies are implemented, and so on and so forth. On the other hand, even if you're a red teamer like myself, anyway, a penetration tester, you need to know the latest exploits and vulnerabilities because you need to apply them to your pen testing engagements when you find this type of issues. And lately I'm seeing this issue related to BlueKeep pretty much all over the place. So the reason why I'm playing with this is that I want to show the customer what can really happen if somebody could find a way to really leverage this exploit, which is gain a system shell and download the passwords. You see that? I dumped the password hashes. So when you write a report, it's much more important and it's much more effective for you to show a screenshot like that than to simply describe a vulnerability that could happen, but the client can't relate to that. What do I mean? Simply telling the client that something might happen doesn't motivate the client enough sometimes to remediate it because they think, okay, it's unlikely. You normally rate this as a critical finding because it grants remote code execution. But if you show them that it can actually be exploited, even though if this is an early release of this exploit, that is much scarier and would probably convince the client to do something about it. With this, I don't say you need to spread fear and, you know, terror, but you need to warn the client and be clear about the real scope of such a vulnerability, because it's something that can easily compromise a specific computer, or if this vulnerability concerns multiple clients in a network, the network itself. So with that being said, I'm going to show you how I got to this result and what steps I performed. So have fun, guys. So earlier I showed you the final result. Now I'm going to show you how I got to this result. This is me running the exploit. It took me a while and several attempts to obtain a shell on the target. Like I said, the exploit is extremely unstable. Here you see that one time I got unsuccessful completely. The exploit wouldn't connect. At that point, I changed some advanced timeout parameters because that normally gives me good results with my exploitation. I normally double the default value. At this point, let's try again. You see I don't have that error anymore. The exploit anyway gets stuck at a later point and it doesn't complete. The problem anyway is that it's extremely unstable and it causes a blue screen of death. Now, I read some guides suggesting to dump the memory address corresponding to this crash and update the exploit code in Metasploit, but honestly, I tried a different way. Like it happened with Eternal Blue, the exploit can make the system so unstable that it needs to reboot. So at this point I'm going to try setting up a different target. And I'm going to try target number 3. Here you see the complete list of targets. And we get another blue screen of death. So we still couldn't find the right combination between target and the actual target we have on the other end. Okay, we're back at it. And this time we got a shell. I don't know how I did it. Looks like I was able to find the right target on my end. And apparently I forgot to set up a meter-per payload, so I got a normal Windows shell. And you notice the IP address of the victim machine. Now the problem remains, which is to dump the password hashes. You notice that I am system administrator on the machine. But at this point I want to dump the password hashes. So I need to find a way. At this point, looks like the only way for me to gain a interpreter shell is to exit the session and exploit again using a interpreter payload. So I'm setting up the options related to the exploit, and I'm going again trying to exploit RDP against this target. You can notice the exploit isn't very reliable because once again I couldn't get a shell, even though I did it before. But that doesn't stop me. This time I got another error, probably I crashed something in the process. But you got keep going, even though that's not something I would do in a production environment unless I had previous authorization. And this time we got a interpreter shell, so I could upgrade my shell to interpreter. And so we can see we penetrated in a Windows 2008 Release 2 system. We knew that as a system administrator, and we can dump the password hashes finally. So we got full control over this machine. So we can use this as a pivot point to move laterally on the network. So you understand how dangerous this vulnerability is, and now you realize how unstable this exploit is at the present time. You should always test this exploit in a test or staging environment, like I did here, and never play with it in a production environment and in a real world pen test until it gets to a more stable version. That's all for today.